Hey guys, Kiwi here. In this video, I'll be breaking down and analyzing the Season 4 Gene scene for Better Call Saul as we discuss Gene during the post-Breaking Bad timeline once again, where we pick up where we left off with Season 3. That being said, a major warning of spoilers for everything in the show up to the Season 4 premiere, and let's jump right into this. So, this Gene scene was actually more chronological than the other three, as we pick up with Gene literally passed out in the middle of the Cinnabon still. Now, before we focus on what actually happens to Jimmy following this, let's take a moment to appreciate the music that they've been using for these Gene scenes. Fallout fans may raise an eyebrow to the song at the beginning, as it's actually by the Ink Spots, who have had multiple songs used in Fallout games such as I Don't Want to Set the World on Fire and It's All Over Now But the Crying, along with the song Maybe, which was apparently the Fallout 1 theme. Anyways, the Ink Spots are known for starting out all of their songs very similar, which is why the one used in this Gene scene sounds so familiar to the songs that I just listed off, along with the one used in the very first episode of the show.
Address unknown, not even a trace of you.
Anyways, the song actually used in episode 401 is called We Three, and it's in reference to the three personas, Jimmy, Saul, and Gene, as the lyrics go, my echo, my shadow, and me. I first saw this mentioned on the Better Call Saul subreddit, and I couldn't agree more. I decided to further look up the lyrics to this song, and what I found actually may be in reference to how Gene feels about Kim. The lyrics go, I walk with my shadow, I talk to my echo, but where is that gal I love? We three will wait for you, even till eternity, my echo, my shadow, and me. So although Kim isn't in this Gene scene at all, is this music all implying that she'll one day show up in Gene's life? They actually used a song from the Ink Spots during Season 1 as well, as I said in the very first episode. It was called Address Unknown, which is in reference to Gene leaving and relocating under his new identity. Not only that, but it could also be referencing how he misses Kim. I absolutely love it when they use this old music, maybe just because I like Fallout so much, but along with the fact that they sync up the lyrics to actually mean something when you relate it to Gene's situation. Moving on, let's discuss Gene passing out at the Cinnabon due to all the adrenaline catching up with him from when he watched that thief get arrested, as you could tell that watching a criminal get caught was obviously bothering him considering what Saul used to do. This isn't the first example of Saul creeping out through the cracks that is now this new Gene persona, as we saw him crying at his classic commercials during the Season 1 Gene scene. Gene is obviously very suppressed by needing to hide in isolation considering he used to be a very vocal and social person. And then when you listen to the dialogue that was actually said during the Saul Goodman commercial, with what Saul is saying, it's almost as though he's speaking directly to Gene in his current situation.
I'll give you the defense you deserve. Why? Because I'm Saul Goodman, attorney at law. I investigate, advocate, persuade, and most importantly, win. Better call Saul. Do you feel doomed? Have opponents of freedom wrongly intimidated you? Maybe they told you that you're in serious trouble and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm Saul Goodman, and I'm here to tell you that they're wrong. It's never too late for justice. Better call.
Not only that, but we also saw him carve SG was here on the wall while he waited overnight by the dumpster during the Season 2 Gene scene, implying that he still has Saul fresh in his mind as the reason why he's even working at the Cinnabon in the first place. Saul's been bottled up and suppressed for Lord knows how long, but is he finally starting to break back through the Gene persona, which is pretty much an outer shell that he's created for himself? When you look closely, you can definitely see how being in hiding has negatively affected his mental and emotional state. Jimmy and Saul both love being the center of attention, they both love being in the spotlight, but Gene has learned to do the exact opposite in order to successfully get away and hide from all the chaos crumbling down around Walter White's situation. So, as Gene passes out at the Cinnabon, all of his coworkers end up calling the paramedics to wheel him out of the mall. Now, normally Gene wouldn't ever dare to go somewhere that would put all of his information into a computer system like a hospital, as he doesn't want to raise any red flags. We even specifically saw saw Gene decide to sit overnight beside a dumpster instead of deciding to set off an alarm at the mall, considering police would have shown up and he would have had to fill out a report of some sort. That being said, Gene had no intentions on going to the hospital, but he didn't really have a choice considering his coworkers called in the ambulance for him. So as Gene goes through all the standard testing to check and see if he had a heart attack or whatnot, the doctor comes back saying that all the tests were negative and that it was a false alarm. The doctor most likely assumed that he either had a heart attack or maybe fainted due to developing an illness later in life such as cancer or something, but we know that he really passed out due to getting worked up from that situation with that thief getting caught. As a side note, there have been multiple theories floating around that Gene may get cancer himself, maybe to only have Kim walk back into his life, but I don't think that they're necessarily going to recreate that kind of parallel to the original show. Anyways, the sneak peek released for this Gene scene teased us with his information possibly not going through at the hospital, as the secretary had his driver's license bounce back, leaving us off with her putting in his social insurance number as we didn't know if it was going to work or not. Jimmy was obviously paranoid about it bouncing back once more, causing a bunch of red flags to go off in all the computer systems, but it turned out that the secretary was just putting the letter O instead of a 0 or something. Even though I figured it was going to be a false alarm, this scene still gave me a crap ton of anxiety, wondering if it was or not. As the scene goes on and on, the show creators seem to be testing how far they can push the viewer's anxiety and paranoia into believing that Gene may really get caught here. And now when the secretary started saying things along the lines of, "Oh, that's really odd, I've never seen this before," I knew it had to be a fake out, as they were obviously trying to spook out the viewers into thinking that she was getting an error that she's never seen before, maybe telling her that Gene's information is actually fake, and it makes sense why she'd never seen something like that before, because how often do you catch someone with a completely fake identity?
It's really odd. I've never seen this before. Oh, wait. Oh my God. I typed the letter O instead of a 0. I can't believe how stupid.
And now, considering how long and drawn out it was for Gene to give out his social number, it became fairly noticeable that they were purposely building up the tension in this scene to make the viewers worried to the point of having a freaking anxiety attack, but that being said, it worked amazingly. Not only that, but the tension from this hospital scene actually continues momentarily in Gene's taxi as well, because Gene was almost out the door like 3 times, each time innocently being asked to walk back for one reason or another, such as when he forgot to grab his ID back from the counter. Now, after all that BS with the secretary, I feel like the audience was about as relieved as Gene was to get in that taxi, but the relief is soon replaced with even more anxiety, as I just said. As Gene initially gets in the taxi, he starts kind of scoffing at himself for being so ridiculously paranoid leaving the hospital, but it seems that he may be celebrating a bit prematurely, as he actually looks up to notice an Albuquerque air freshener. From here, the taxi driver constantly darts his eyes back and forth at Gene, but why? Just as he thought that the taxi was a safe haven away from the anxiety attack that was the hospital, the taxi driver actually starts sketching him out as well, with an awkward silence along with intimidating glances in his direction. That being said, could this also just be a misunderstanding? But it's just the fact that we just saw a fake out. It's like, really? Are they going to give us another fake out? And then the scene does end open-ended. I mean, Jimmy does get away and everything, but we don't really know who that guy was. This entire cab drive has the audience contemplating whether or not Gene is about to get in some serious trouble. Does that person know who Gene is? He's from where Saul was. Is he sent out here to find him? Where will he take him? He's not talking to him. What will he do with him? Saul Goodman's face is a very, very publicly known face. It was all over Albuquerque, so was this taxi driver staring at Gene because he recognized him as Saul, or was he just staring at him because Gene was staring back the entire time? The taxi driver doesn't start glaring at Gene until after Gene notices the Albuquerque sign, so it's completely possible that Gene just doesn't realize how much he's actually staring at the driver, causing the driver to eventually look back at him over over and over again as he thinks to himself, why is this customer staring at me? It's a pretty common situation for someone to be staring off into space and to be accidentally staring at someone without realizing it, or staring at someone without quite realizing how much they're obviously staring at someone. So maybe Gene just zoned out and kinda weirded the taxi driver out, which is why he was glancing back at him the way he was. Regardless, it is odd that the taxi driver didn't say one word the entire time, obviously working to Gene's paranoia. He didn't say one word when he first got in, he didn't greet him, and then when Gene said, you know what, I'll get out here, the taxi driver took a minute to pull over and he didn't say anything on top of it, implying that what, is he not gonna stop? Is he taking Gene elsewhere? Now, it's very possible to have a taxi driver who just isn't talkative. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of people that would prefer that, but usually when you get in a cab, the driver at least greets you or says hi or something, right? If the taxi driver would have greeted Gene or maybe even attempted to make small talk, it definitely would have been less awkward, but that's what played a part into the paranoia once again. Was the driver just not talkative, or was he onto Saul? The show creators know that we're constantly thinking of every possibility as we watch Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, so they know that we'd instantly assume that maybe this taxi driver is someone from Albuquerque out to get him. They literally shoved the Albuquerque air freshener sign in our face, pretty much saying, hey, look at this, and then look at the creepy way the taxi driver is acting. Are you getting anxiety yet? The show creators can actually be subtle about smaller details when they want, but this in particular is fairly obvious, as Gene's paranoia is supposed to be the main focus of this Gene scene and all of the scenes in general. Even in interviews right before season 4 came out, Bob Odenkirk was telling everyone how this scene focuses on Gene's paranoia getting to him as he constantly gets more and more tense about being found out as Saul as time goes on, but is it all in his head?
Yeah. And he's living in Omaha, working at a Cinnabon, and he's starting to get really freaked out about being caught. Wow. So it's a tense scene.
Well, first off, he does have a very legitimate reason to be paranoid at every turn, but he shouldn't let that get the best of him. Although he should always be on his toes, so to speak, he shouldn't always be one step away from having a panic attack. Gene needs to accept that someone or something could pop up at any moment to risk his disguise, but he also needs to learn to control his anxiety, stay cool-headed, and not let it get the best of him. Saul kinda signed up for this, right? Saul knew that he would maybe one day have to suddenly just disappear and just completely change identities, right? He had to have thought of this. Maybe he thought it never would have happened, or maybe he was trying to block it out the way that Jimmy's blocking out Chuck's death right now, but you think that Saul would have thought about this? Gene really needs to control his anxiety. I mean, if Gene continues to get increasingly anxious and paranoid every time something like this happens, he'll get himself so constantly worked up that he'll never be ready for if something really does happen. Jimmy needs to stay cool-headed so that he's in a proper state of mind if anything were to creep up on him and risk uncovering his identity. If Jimmy keeps getting constantly worked up, he'll just drive himself insane. Like, he needs to calm down in order to keep himself in control. Even if people are after him, as I said, he does have a right to be paranoid. As long as Gene doesn't slip up or give anything obvious away, he should be fine, relatively speaking. So, are people really after Saul, like that taxi driver for example, or is this all in his head? I personally believe that this was just meant to be an example showing how Gene can get worked up and paranoid from the simplest situations, along with implying that his paranoia may be his own downfall if he doesn't learn to control himself. Even during other Gene scenes, we saw very clear examples of his paranoia as he literally avoided setting off alarms, along with constantly being concerned if certain customers are watching him. During the season 1 Gene scene, the very first episode of the show, the very first scene, while he's at his shift before he goes home, we saw him acting paranoid towards someone in the corner of his Cinnabon, seemingly staring at him and acting strange, as if he was watching him, when in reality the customer is actually just an innocent civilian who doesn't even end up doing anything. This just further shows Gene's paranoia from the beginning of the show, along with implying that the writers might have actually known that they were going to take Gene's character in this direction since the first few seasons, eventually leading up to him fainting. If Gene doesn't keep his cool, getting paranoid in situations like this may actually be what tips people off to thinking that something isn't right with him. If he acts guilty, people are gonna assume that he's hiding something, right? If he acts like he has nothing to hide, people should be none the wiser. Leave any Gene theories or predictions down in the comments below, but that's pretty much it for the video, guys. I'd appreciate a like on the video if you've enjoyed anything I've said today, as it really helps me out more than you can imagine. Feel free to subscribe for more Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad content in the near future, and if you'd like to take that extra step in helping support my videos, consider checking out my Patreon as well. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter too, link to both of those in the description. I'm fairly active on Twitter even when I'm not posting videos, as I'm always retweeting everything I can involving both the Better Call Saul and Walking Dead universe. But anyways, guys, as always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out!